Hello, welcome back to YCFT. This week, we are taking a look at a Tim Burton film, which I believe this is our first Tim Burton film we've looked at.
It will be.
We're looking at Sleepy Hollow.
Yes!
Obviously, an adaptation of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. There's a very famous cartoon based on it.
From the 40s. Yeah. Bing Crosby did some kind of voice work on it.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
Yeah. I personally was a big fan of at least the first two seasons of the Sleepy Hollow TV series that came out a few years ago.
I haven't seen it.
This adaptation...
This is, for me, the definitive version of Sleepy
It
Hollow.
is Tim Burton at his peak. Obviously, the story about the man with a pumpkin for a head is the Headless Horseman.
Yeah.
The Hessian himself. When did this film come out?
This came out in 1999.
And stars Johnny Depp.
Yes. Not the first time he collaborated with Burton.
I think it was only the second time, isn't it? It was Edward Scissorhands beforehand.
But this was Burton's first horror film.
Yeah.
I
mean, in many ways, can Edward Scissorhands be classed as a horror?
I think it's got... I wouldn't say it's necessarily horror. Maybe not. But it's
Gothic in bits.
It's Gothic elements.
It's Gothic with colour.
Yeah. I don't think it's designed to scare you, though. That's the thing.
This is a full-blown
This is
movie.
a creepy-ass horror movie.
They do say there's never actually been a true adaptation of the book.
There has not been.
But all adaptations have taken liberties with it. But
yes,
this film
very much so.
Is fantastic.
This is
absolutely
beautiful.
fantastic. It's gorgeous. The sets that they made.
I would say this is a perfect film.
Yeah.
For me,
this
is just a perfect horror movie. Every single component about it works. There is such a unique visual style to it that's almost like fairy tale-esque.
Yeah, like a dark fairy tale.
Yeah, it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, the
I'm
score
so
is
happy we're
incredible.
talking
I
about
said
it.
the production. I just love the fact that this is such a silly little thing. But they had to have a goose wrangler on set so they could have
they
animals
did.
going across to make the town feel more alive.
Yeah.
And so obviously it's about Ichabod Crane,
It
who's been changed from a...
He's a teacher in the book,
and
in the short story.
And he's
he's a detective.
Yeah,
He's a constable.
And he thinks that police work is stuck in the medieval era, like they're using devices of
torture devices, which
devices.
He personally disagrees with.
He wants to move. He wants to push forward using new techniques, new science. So they send him to Sleepy Hollow, which is a real place.
Yes,
I did not realize until recently that it was a real place, and now I really want to go there.
Love to go there.
From what I've heard, they massively embrace like this story.
Oh, they do. Yeah, definitely.
Because there's a collection of murders there about people who've had their heads chopped off.
Their heads lopped off. I love how Christopher Lee says that. Yeah.
Christopher Lee became quite a frequent collaborator with Tim Burton as well, just in like small supporting roles.
Yeah. Ichabod is sent there basically as a punishment. You know, they don't really know what to do with this guy anymore. They're fed up of dealing with this shit.
Yeah.
Just go to like this point up, near the Hudson River, and they'll deal with you. So he's sent there, and as soon as he arrives in this sleepy little town, the production design is just absolutely wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he is sent to investigate these beheadings.
Great cast in this as well.
Wonderful cast. We have
very well-known actors.
The greats. We've got Michael Gambon. We've got Miranda Richardson, who appears in it. Oh my god! And there's so many. Richard Griffiths is in the movie, and who's the guy that played the Star Wars guy?
Oh, the Emperor.
The Emperor. Yeah, I can't remember his name, but like
unlimited power. Ian McDiarmid.
And also, God, names. The guy, Michael Gough will go. He's Alfred in Burton's 1989 Batman.
He was also fantastic.
He was actually retired.
Yeah, Tim Burton got him out of retirement for this.
So there's a wonderful slew of talent here, both British and American.
This might be like my favourite Johnny Depp film, to be honest. Like, I think he is brilliant in it. And, oh God, who plays the Horseman?
Mr. Christopher Walken.
Yeah. When we say plays the Horseman, like, he plays him in the flashback scenes.
With his head.
When he has his head.
Yes.
But the actual Horseman himself was played by the same guy who played Darth Maul.
Yes.
In The Phantom Menace, the same year.
Yes.
Great year for him.
Whose name I don't have, but I think we should pop his name in.
I do know it, but it'll probably pop into my head later on.
Yeah, probably.
But he was... You can tell in his movements, he's absolutely fantastic. And that's
brilliant.
Like, the effects in this film...
Yes.
Apart from, I'd say, we are we going to spoil the entire film?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to spoil the entire film. When the
Yes,
head goes
we are.
back on, looks a bit ropey, a lot of great detail. But certain scenes, like where the horseman is obviously headless and fighting, that is like him wearing
so clean
a blue
ski mask.
Like a blue ski mask, and they've had to take that out and comp the background back in. It looks flawless.
Yeah, it
And
does.
especially for 99 as well.
Yeah.
That's hard to do.
Yeah.
And I think they did an absolutely fantastic job with that.
I totally agree. So Ichabod, he goes to the town and he finds out very quickly that this is a town that is laden in superstition, and everybody pretty much believes in the paranormal, and everybody in the town, especially the
Devil's Fire.
Devil's Fire. I don't know, really, like the town's like the elite of the town, like Michael Gambon, who is part of the it's not the Van Garretts, the Van Tessels, isn't he? He's the Van Tessel family. It was like the big family of Sleepy Hollow. And they all believe very firmly that the horseman is responsible for the beheadings. Now, Ichabod is not a believer in the supernatural at this point.
He believes that as a man of flesh and blood.
Yes, who is probably just latching onto the legend of the horseman in order to scare the townsfolk. But he believes primarily that the culprit will be someone of flesh and blood. Flesh and blood.
One of my favourite scenes, which isn't with a real horseman, which is when they pull a prank on him. Where they do like the more traditional method where they pretend to be the horseman, they throw a flaming pumpkin at him.
Yeah, to try and
and
scare
they
him
just
off.
pad up to that. Is actually one of the best scenes in the film, and
It's
actually
so
getting
good.
to see it's basically this scene here with the
Yeah,
like on the front cover of the book, and I love that wasn't actually the horseman,
yeah.
but it's one of the best scenes. But there's actually a really good mystery in this film.
There's a brilliant conspiracy.
In the end, he is right. The person responsible is of flesh and blood.
Yes,
It's not a man,
but there is
but there is actually a really good mystery to be solved here.
to be
I think
solved.
I don't think I worked out who it was the first time.
I
Or
wish
even
I
that
could
if-
remember.
Even if I did, I don't think the motivations are kind of impossible to work out.
Yes, yeah. But it's
But
so
something-
satisfying.
The kills whenever the horseman comes, because massive horse, whenever the head's clean off,
Yes.
it looks just incredible. Some amazing practical effects.
Yeah, there are.
And it's like very careful with it. There's a lot of blood in this, but they're also really careful as to when these. I think whenever the heads come off, the Devil's Fire, the wound is instantly cauterized, and I think that's a very smart move to not have blood squirting
To not
everywhere,
have blood.
to save it for certain parts,
Yes.
so it's more effective.
And a particular grim detail is that the heads are not found by the body, because the heads are not found at all. The heads
Yeah.
are taken by the horseman back to hell.
Yeah.
Back to hell. But yeah, the practical effects are just wonderful. And you mentioned the blood, so it's not necessarily seen too much, but when we do see it, it's very deliberately reminiscent of, say, like Hammer film horror blood. It's very gloopy, and it's unnaturally red, and I think very much on purpose.
Think Prince of Darkness with Christopher Lee. That like the
Yeah.
blood in that. That's
Yeah,
how it looks. And obviously, it feels like a Hammer horror film. And
Burton was massively influenced by Hammer. He
Yeah.
said when he was making this.
it's written all over it. I think Guillermo del Toro absolutely loves this film as well.
Yes.
From what I can remember.
Yeah. The director of photography, a guy called Emmanuel Lubezki, he said that him and Burton watch copious Hammer horror films, and also a lot of the Mexican lucha films that you have a soft spot for
I
as
do.
well. So
Lots
of inspiration.
I have no idea if anyone else is interested in this. He named one in particular,
He did, that
which
you've
I've seen. It's like Les Santos versus the monsters. They all obviously all have Mexican names that have been translated, but that was
Yeah.
the very first one I watched. And I always loved the lore around the luchadors and what would happen if they took their masks off. And like when El Santos did take his mask off, when
Yeah.
he retired, he died a week later
Yes.
of a heart attack. There's so much like around it, but that is a video for another time. But I'm really glad that they were kind of
Yeah. I
inspired
told
by
you that,
those
and
films.
Your face just lit up
Like-
like, oh my god. So right, so Ichabod, he arrives in the town. He's trying to solve the mystery. The murders continue to happen even after he arrives in the town. And when he's there, he meets Katrina Van Tassel, who is the daughter of Michael Gambon. Her stepmom is Miranda Richardson, who is married into the family. And Ichabod immediately falls head over heels in love with Katrina at first sight. She's played by the wonderful Christina Richie.
Richie. I always thought it was Richie. Wednesday Addams.
Wednesday Addams, a blonde Wednesday Addams, who I really feel like should work more with Tim Burton. She's just made for Gothic and.
I mean,
Tim
she
Burton
technically is,
films.
because she is going to have a role in Wednesday.
Oh, she is, yeah, but we just don't know exactly like to
What the
extent,
role is,
do we?
yeah.
But yeah, he falls madly in love with her. She falls in love with him. There's another guy on the scene though as well.
Don't worry, he's going to lose his head soon, and she's really not arsed by that.
He literally gets like.
Oh, and that's Casper Van Diem from Starship Troopers. I love him.
Brilliant fight scene with him and the
That was
Horseman.
really good. The Horseman, Ichabod notices the Horseman is not interested in him.
Well, this.
And that follows on from a
Yes.
pretty horrifying. I think the best example of showing the effects of the Headless Horseman.
Yes.
So when it comes after a family and a child.
Yes.
And it's truly pretty
It is. You don't
horrifying
see
to watch.
Well, you see one of the kills especially, but yes.
It's when he's just walking. You see him like wearing his tattered cloak and carrying the heads.
Yes. So Ichabod's actually on the scene for 2 of the Horseman murders. He actually sees the Horseman and he finally starts to believe that actually, yes, the legend is true.
I'm glad it's like it's like midway through and he's like, it's true. No,
It's
I
all
saw him. And
true.
and they're like, yes, we told you. Everyone told you.
No, you don't understand. I saw him. I just faints. He faints so many times in the film.
Yeah,
But
he does it constantly passing because he's squeamish.
Yes. So yeah, he's around for a couple of the kills, and in all instances, the Horseman leaves Ichabod alone, and this then leads Ichabod to believing that the Horseman doesn't kill at random. The victims are chosen. He is targeting specific people, and that then leads him into unraveling a very cool, elaborate conspiracy.
Because once he accepts that the supernatural is real, he's like, right, okay,
Yes.
it's a supernatural. I'm not going to question it anymore. But there is definitely someone behind this.
Someone is pulling the strings. Someone is puppeteering this whole thing. They are using the Horseman. The Horseman's doing the dirty work, but someone is ultimately controlling the Horseman.
Mm.
So we definitely want to do spoilers. We decided.
Yeah, I mean, it came out in 99. I think who doesn't know this film at this point?
So he's told to go to the Tree of the Dead, which is in the bowels of the
creepy ass looking tree.
The haunted forest.
One of the greatest cinematic trees.
Oh, it's so good. It was made as well practical, which I'll talk a bit more about
the whole
production design
the
later.
whole town was made.
Yes, it was. The Tree of the Dead, and within the Tree of the Dead, they discover all the heads that have been stolen by the Horseman. And after a bit more digging, they realise that the tree is the Horseman's resting place, but his head is missing.
Yeah, his body when he was killed, the Hessian. Like I love it when you actually look into like the era that it's set.
The Hessian soldier.
Yeah, grinded his teeth down into spikes. When he was eventually killed, his body has acted like a seed for this evil tree.
Yes, and someone has taken his skull, and they are using the skull in order to manipulate the Horseman into killing people.
It's kind of like the director of Nosferatu. They've taken his head.
They've taken his bloody head. Oh god, yeah, it was great.
So the director's going to rise from the grave and take heads.
Apparently, this is how it works, guys. The legend of F.W. Murnau. Wow. But yeah, it's revealed ultimately that Miranda Richardson, Katrina's stepmom, is behind it all. Because she was once part of a very well-to-do family.
I can't remember the name of the family.
Well, there's the Van Garrett and the Van
Garretts,
Tassels. But yeah, her family were blacklisted, and
I thought her family name was Archer.
There was Archer once upon a time, but they were still quite a well-to-do family, I think, weren't they, in the story?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they end up being outcast because her mum is accused of witchcraft, I think she says. And so they end up living in the forest, just in abject poverty. And the mum dies, the dad passes away, so it's just her and her sister that are left. And one day when they are children, they encounter the Horseman in the flesh as a Hessian soldier. And they watch him die. They watch him finally be defeated by other soldiers. And Miranda Richardson's character, she sold her soul to the devil in that moment, saying that if he was ever to help her and if she could ever resurrect the Horseman, that she would once again fall into a life of lavishness. You know, she would get into good graces again, and she wouldn't ever have to live in poverty ever again. So she does. She wangles her way into the Van
Do you get the
Tassel
idea that she
household.
killed the original mother?
Yeah, because she was employed as the nurse.
Yeah.
I think absolutely she killed her.
Yeah.
Slowly.
And then it's like, it gets
And then
it's obviously
ingratiated
strangely
herself into the
political
family.
as well. Like, obviously, she can't just kill everybody.
Yes.
Legal things need to be put in place in order for her to inherit everything.
Yes, exactly. And this is why she's targeting specific people for the horsemen to kill, because it all connects back to the families and Van Garrett, who's the other kind of wealthy landowner in the town. He's got a widow pregnant, which has kind of just messed up the inheritance.
Widow Winship, I think her name was.
Widow Winship,
It's
yeah.
like, she wasn't the fourth victim, but the fifth.
But the fifth.
And it's like,
So-
it's dark when you really
Yeah.
start to think about it.
It's all to do with family lineage and where the inheritance is ultimately going to go. So Van Garrett has to die, the widow has to die, and her unborn baby. They have to die.
And anyone that knows about it has to die.
Anybody who knows about this has to die, including people who have signed the will or witnessed the marriage that took place. So yes, it is actually very, very conspiratorial and very political. But ultimately, yeah, it was she that was controlling the horsemen. And I just got to take a minute to talk about the Headless Horseman, because the flashbacks that we see of him when... I love that scene when Johnny first arrives and they're all just kind of sitting around with tea.
The
and they're
Hessian's keeping his father's watch up his ass. Do you know what I'm referencing there?
No.
It's Pulp Fiction.
Oh, for God's
He gives
sake.
Bruce Willis's father's watch up his ass.
Oh my God.
Come on, someone else got that, right?
Someone would have. I'm knee deep in this, right? So
I've been holding on to that one since we watched it.
the Headless Horseman. So yeah, he was a Hessian soldier around the time of the American Revolutionary War, and Hessian soldiers were German soldiers who served as auxiliaries in the British Army during the American Revolutionary War. So they were fighting alongside the British for the British.
We didn't lose, we just left.
Video for another day. But yes, I can't remember where the nickname Hessian came from, but that is explained. But anyway, yes, in this version of the story, I think it's also the same in the novella. He's a Hessian who was a bloodthirsty butcher. I think Gambon describes him as. He's just killing for the sake of killing. He's a psychopath, a raging psychopath.
They changed that in the TV series. It was revealed that he wasn't actually a Hessian. He was someone that swapped sides. I can't really remember. I do want you to watch... I didn't finish the series because I started season 3 and it wasn't great, but seasons 1 and 2 is actually fantastic. And their depiction of the Headless Horseman was really interesting.
Christopher Walken, I think, is brilliant. The makeup they give him and the jet black hair and the spiky teeth that he's shaved.
He doesn't say words. He just goes, "Arr!"
No, he literally does not have a word of dialogue.
So do we class him as an extra?
I know, it's because when we were watching it, I was looking at the opening credits, and I swear he's not credited Christopher Walken in the opening. I swear he isn't.
In all fairness, he probably came onto the film very late.
Yeah, maybe. But also he knows Tim Burton, doesn't he, because of Batman?
Yeah.
Work together.
So
yeah, there's clearly a relationship there, but I love the look of him. He's scary without the head, but even more scary with the head on.
His costume had to be prominent enough as well to look cool without the head.
Yes. Yeah.
And anytime that the horseman has to fight, he fights in such a unique way. Simple things, again, like simple compositing things. Like when people go to swing at them, kind of forgetting that they're fighting someone without a head, and the weapon just goes straight over, or when he'll swing a weapon and take advantage of the fact that he can swing it in a certain way because his head's not there. I'm like, thought has had to go into choreographing this.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Really, really cool.
It's brilliant. Yeah, the horse riding scenes as well are just fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. I'm pretty sure I remember reading once as well that for certain scenes where the horseman is riding headless, some of the
Ray Park, that's what he's called.
So he's a stunt
also Toad in the first X-Men film.
I think
so. He was about to have a really good couple of years.
That's cool. You said the name.
I said it would come back to you. It's Ray Park.
But I also think in some of the horse riding scenes, it's a stunt woman.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of the horse riding scene, which is really cool. I'll try and get her name if I'm remembering that right as well. But yeah, there's so much.
I think wasn't that so it was easier to build up around the head.
Maybe, yeah.
I think in the scene that I was talking about earlier when they trick him, I think that was the woman.
Could have been.
I think that was her riding that one.
Could have been. It's done so well. That whole sequence. And just to Go on.
Johnny Depp did a really good stunt when he's hanging off the back of a
he actually
carriage.
did some of his own stunts. Yeah, he wanted to get down and dirty with it, which is gotta love Johnny Depp.
Yeah,
you gotta love him. And I also just talk a little bit about his performance as Ichabod, because 1999, Johnny Depp was certainly a known name, but he was not.
Jack Sparrow hadn't come along yet.
It had not come along yet. Johnny Depp was still very much the kind of, the oddball actor that did quirky film roles, and this was probably included in
I think he was still just the kid that died in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I mean, he was obviously Edward Scissorhands had happened at that point, and that was a big film, and he'd done some very, like low budget stuff. I think I can't remember. No, he hadn't done Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas at that point. I think that was.
You must have done 21 Jump Street.
Oh God, that was 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so.
So he probably would have been known from that.
He was known, but he wasn't a huge star. And so, but obviously he knew Tim Burton, and when they were discussing the role of Ichabod, both of them were in agreement, and Johnny was absolutely for this, that he never wanted to play Ichabod as an action star. He never wanted to be, the hero, like the handsome hero that rolls into town and like saves the day, because he knew that's not what the role needed. He wanted to explore the character's almost kind of femininity. In a way, like you were saying, like he's very squeamish. He faints a lot. Like there's a childlike.
He can be heroic when he needs to be, but he messes up a lot.
And the scene where he finally kind of accepts the fact that there is something supernatural here. The horseman is real, and he's in bed, and he like lifts the he lifts like the bed sheet up over his face like a child.
Terrified of spiders.
He's terrified of spiders, but he also has a tragic backstory to the character. Part of the reason why he's so fervently against torture as a device that the police use is because his mother, in flashbacks, was an innocent, almost kind of like the equivalence of what a flower child would be like, I guess, but going back to the 1700s.
Because they did almost, in relation to this scene in particular, they almost considered doing the film in black and white, didn't they?
They did.
But it was because of this scene here, when you see his father for the first time, they wanted the contrast of the red against the white.
Yes. The colour palette is just stunning.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's almost like some scenes are very monochrome-like, and then other scenes the colours are so bold, and then they really, really stand out.
His father executed his mother for witchcraft. And he's kind of repressed it. So
what is it, an Iron Maiden that he plays?
An Iron Maiden, yeah. That's, Jesus.
Not a nice way to go. And he is... he's so traumatized by this memory, and again, it plays into his whole thing of why he's so against torture and why he believes that we need to move with the times. But yeah, it's haunted him.
That's kind of why he's not a massive fan of. It's a bit out and said, but he's not a massive fan of the church.
No.
But he's kind of like, he has not necessarily a distaste for the themes of witchcraft, but I guess he just doesn't believe that it's evil.
No. And Katrina is, by contrast, quite spiritual and is a good witch, I guess. I mean, she doesn't necessarily outwardly
She's more of a
practice
Wiccan.
witchcraft. More of a Wiccan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a good chunk of the film where he is quite suspicious of Katrina. He believes at one point that she could be controlling the horseman. He believes at some point that her father could be controlling the horseman before all is revealed. But I really liked that that part of the casting. I
also really like that in the end it is his scientific methods that reveal to him who is responsible.
Yeah.
So it's he has gone there with a purpose to prove that these methods work, and they did. And it's a simple thing of like the cut on the hands, like this cut was made after this woman was already dead.
Yeah.
This isn't the head's not here. This isn't who we think it is.
No clotting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Science saves the day.
It's like even in a supernatural thing, and his modern methods of investigation have a place.
Yeah, and you get hints of old versus new again, which we've seen before. But whereas he wants to conduct autopsies, and a lot of the townsfolk, even back in New York, before he's sent to Sleepy Hollow, they're very firmly against that. They see that as
desecration.
Desecration. Yeah, so he's kind of butting heads with a lot of people who disbelieve in scientific
Great shot
progress.
when he's brought before Christopher Lee, and he has like almost like the big black wings behind him when he's on his podium.
Yes,
I
yeah.
really like that.
Just like playing God, Christopher Lee in that
Yeah.
scene. He's so brilliant.
There's definitely a homage to Frankenstein in this.
Oh yeah.
When they're in the windmill.
Oh, the
when
windmill.
they go to the windmill and it's set on fire. It's like that. I watched that. It's the way they frame it as well. I was like, this is Frankenstein.
The set piece, the windmill hold design was just absolutely brilliant. And yeah, so just production design, just whilst we're on it.
Yeah. Also, having Christopher Lee in it is obviously a throwback to Hammer Horror.
Yes.
Was this the first time Christopher Lee?
It might have been.
Yeah.
It might have been.
Because that would be, like, obviously if they've watched like dozens of Hammer
Yeah.
Horror films, then if they could get Christopher Lee in a small supporting role, that would be like a dream come true.
He's literally, it's like a little cameo. He's at the very beginning of the movie, but he's
It's about as much of a cameo as he has in Willy Wonka. Or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh God, yeah,
He plays his dad,
in that, isn't he? Yeah, yeah. I forgot all about that. But yeah, production. So the initial intention was to shoot entirely on location in Sleepy Hollow because, as we said, it's a real town. But they couldn't quite find the right look and feel because even though it's Sleepy Hollow, it's been modernised over the years.
People live there.
So they ended up coming to shoot in England, which Burton was more than happy with because he'd shot Batman in England many years before and he knew he could do it. So it was shot predominantly at Leavesden Studios. But the Sleepy Hollow village, the exteriors, all the little huts and the houses and the barns, that was constructed in a little town called Hambledon in Buckinghamshire. But all of those little houses...
I know, they went to uni there.
Really?
Yeah.
All of those little houses were real. They were built. It's all entirely practical. The same with the windmill. And the production designer is a guy called Rick Heinrichs, and he's said that we were really, really proud of what we managed to accomplish.
It feels like that's it. Like
in the film,
the church especially looked so similar to a church in The Patriot that I thought they'd shot on the same location.
God, yeah.
I was so convinced, and now just that felt just like a real town.
Yeah. Well,
and it's a goose wrangler. That's what did it.
The goose wrangler. That's a job.
That is a job. Yeah.
You want to try and get work at film and TV? Maybe animal wrangling is a good way to do it. But yeah,
this is little things that add a level. Now, ever since hearing that fact, anytime I watch a film and I see animals, I'm like, there's a wrangler.
Yeah, it's so like gloriously gothic. I just absolutely love it. And one of the criticisms when the movie came out, again, it's not a criticism necessarily, because for the most part this film was very, very well received. But the thing that most people that got to a few people was that it was a chance to do a faithful adaptation of the novella. But they didn't quite do it. But they did have to concede that whilst it might not be faithful to the source material, Burton is very faithful in other ways. So it's faithful in the period detail, faithful
the feel
in
of it,
the
atmosphere. Yeah.
So it's like you cannot fault this movie at all.
I think they are working on a new Sleepy Hollow, I believe.
Apparently so, yeah. I saw that on Wikipedia.
So it could be the perfect time to do a faithful adaptation of it. Because God forbid the TV series isn't, because it's set in the modern day.
Yeah.
There's a time travel element to it.
There is a time travel element.
So I'm very curious to see what they do. And I think it is time, because it's been 23 years.
It's been a long time. Yeah, this film is old.
Yeah. And it's great. It holds up so well.
Oh,
it's a great Halloween film.
Oh, it's just, this is like, I will watch this movie, probably same as you, like at least once or twice a year maybe, but always around the same time.
It's on my list of films that I watch once a year, which
this is like
just keeps getting longer.
Perfect Halloween film. It's a perfect film for October. And big shout out to the costume designer Colleen Atwood, who's worked on a lot of stuff. Oscar-winning costume designer. She's absolutely fantastic. And there's a really beautiful dress that Christina Ricci wears at the very end, black and white pinstripe, clearly an homage to Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
But I did really love that. And oh my god, gotta talk about like the very end, where the final showdown, and in the end Johnny is able to retrieve the skull from Miranda Richardson and
Horseman
gives it to the horseman as like a peace offering, because at this point he's coming after Katrina. And the horseman just, pops his head back on.
That's why I think the effect... I can see what they're doing. There's a great level of detail there, but it hasn't aged that well.
No.
But I can appreciate the detail in it.
I love the scene just after it, where the horseman kind of like acknowledges Ichabod and Katrina. And even though he could still technically kill them both if he wanted to. He wants
revenge.
He's not interested in them anymore. It's like, okay, thank you for giving me back my head. I appreciate that.
Not only has she been manipulating him throughout the entire film,
she stole his fucking head.
She also was responsible for his death when she was a child.
Oh yeah, the twig snap.
She broke the sword.
She made the sound that alerted all the other soldiers to him. So yeah, he's got a bone to pick with her. So he goes and picks up Miranda Richardson, puts her on his horse, and just after there's a really sweet moment where he like pets his horse, like seeing it for the first time in a while.
Yeah, obviously he's been riding it, but it's like, oh, I can actually see you now.
Yeah, what was the horse called? Daredevil or something
Yeah.
like that. And anyway, he picks Miranda Richardson up, and there's a moment where she's been hit on the head with a branch, and she kind of wakes up a bit groggy, and then we get a kiss.
What's like is he bites around her mouth, and
it's so gnarly. Like, what is he doing? Is he biting her tongue? Is he biting her?
I think it's her lips.
Mouth? And it's just like when he pulls away, she's clearly in a lot of pain and distress. Like, oh my god, blood's just seeping out of her mouth, and he's loving it.
He just goes, ah.
Yeah, there's like he's clearly like,
yeah,
takes her.
Back
First bit of action he's had in a long time.
Also, we've seen like
takes
again
her back to hell.
great effects for the time, like the horse coming out of like the tree.
Yeah.
But he takes her back to hell, and one bit I love because her hand is just left there.
Yeah,
and
kind of
just
like
slowly goes into like a beckoning thing, and we get the final faint from
the final faint from Ichabod. Yeah,
he's just like that. That's enough for him. He's done.
Yeah, he's absolutely done. But it breaks
so in the end, the
curse.
showdown isn't a showdown with a horseman; it's a showdown with Miranda Richardson.
Yes, yeah. She's
I just the name of her character has completely escaped from me. She's just a stepmother.
Oh God, I know. I can't remember her name. Which I probably it'll come to me as soon as this is finished.
Yeah, because most of it is just them like fighting on the ground trying to get to the head.
Trying to get battle for the head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the horseman is going after Katrina. But yeah,
she has killed at least 2 people on screen that we've seen. She killed the servant girl and killed her own sister, a witch that we do see.
Yes.
Which doesn't have some very good.
Yeah,
effects.
it tells you.
That was weird. That bit was weird.
I do love it though.
I think you could take that out of the film entirely, and you'd have no.
No, it would still work. Like they could easily just cut out that scene, and they stumble across the tree of the dead.
It was a bit odd,
on their own. But yeah. The witch basically guides him to the tree of the dead. But yeah, that by Miranda Richardson going back to hell with the horseman, that basically just ends the curse, and Sleepy Hollow becomes a. You can see it in the lighting and the production design again. There's just the fog is gone, like the bleakness is gone. It looks a lot more autumnal, kind of signifying, the start of a new age for the little town.
Yeah.
And
even though half of them are dead.
Even though half are dead and probably very, very traumatized. But yeah, it's just such a brilliant film. Like I've seen it so many times. I never get bored of it. Just visually alone, it's just a treat to watch.
It is.
I love it.
I think this is Tim Burton
much.
at his best. Like,
yeah, the film did win an Oscar. It won for Best Art Direction.
Yeah. Then what was its budget?
Budget was 70 million, 70.
Big budget.
And it grossed 207 million.
So it did pretty well.
It did pretty well. And as I say, it was very well received too. Our old friend Roger Ebert also, declared that it was a very good film to watch. He enjoyed it.
Yeah. Whenever we bring him up, he doesn't usually enjoy the films that we bring.
Notoriously hard to please.
It is currently on Netflix.
Yeah. All of the cast is wonderful. I mean, Johnny Depp is like obviously the standout because Ichabod is such like a weird oddball of a character, and I just love how willing he was to not, like be vain with the role. Johnny Depp has never been vain in his career. Like he will happily take on those weird, wonderful characters.
Like I think one of my favorite roles of his is the French Canadian detective in Tusk, which he basically took on so that his daughter could get an introduction into the film industry, and it's one of my favorite roles that he's done.
He's just love the guy. I love him in this. I love him and Christina Ricci together. She's great in this too. Like I love the build up of their romance, like the inevitable romance that they're gonna have. But there's something also very sweet and innocent about it as well. I love the young kid that plays like his protege, Mazbeth. I don't have the name. But I love the chemistry between all of them is just brilliant. It's so well. Miranda Richardson is so deliciously evil, to just desperately wanting power and fame and beauty and everything. It's just great. It's so great.
Yeah. Do you think Sam's a fan?
Can you tell? I
think at half his videos you've been saying it's great.
It's great.
It is, and it's a very good film.
Where does this rank in your Tim Burton movies?
I said
top.
It could be top.
Yeah.
It could be the top, because I think it's the one I've rewatched the most.
Because obviously he has worked on horror since Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.
I don't think he's bested Sleepy Hollow.
No, I don't think so. I think the closest he could have came to but he kind of fumbled it. Was Dark Shadows. I
Dark
think
Shadows.
that had the chance, but it's a bit. I don't know if this was studio interference, but that feels like too many movies shoved into one. But like in terms of like the material that it was coming from, they could have made something.
I think there's a perception that after a certain point in his career, Tim Burton kind of became a bit too Tim Burton, and it's weird. It's a weird statement to say, but I kind of understand that.
Yeah.
Like he kind of there's whimsy, but then there's like over the top whimsy, and he kind of I
think another one of my favourites is Frankenweenie.
Frankenweenie.
I really like Frank. Obviously based on a short film he made in college. I really like Frankenweenie. It's so dark and sweet.
Corpse Bride is delightful.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful film. Yeah, I agree. I do agree. Dark Shadows was a missed opportunity. I would like to deep dive into Dark Shadows at some point. And
once you finish watching all 1,000 episodes of it.
Yes, but I think Sleepy Hollow is like it's the ultimate Tim Burton movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's gothic. It's whimsical. It's romantic. It's spooky. It's just everything like you want that I want from a horror film.
Yeah.
Like I always enjoy rewatching it. I can't wait to start reading it too.
Yeah. I might dive into the TV series again.
Yeah.
You never know. So, is that everything?
Yeah, I think so.
Everything? All notes?
You should stop me before I start rattling on even more.
Before you say it's great again.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Like I said, it's on Netflix. At the time of this recording, it's on Netflix. Absolutely check it out. Again, great just to watch in the spooky season throughout October and November. I believe that this video is absolutely coming out in November.
Probably. Still spooky season.
Get these watched before they all disappear for the Christmas movies.
Yes.
But yeah, absolutely check it out. It's great. And we'll see you next week.